Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Yu Wing. You can call me Yu Win or Win, and I'm happy that we get to spend this time together whenever and wherever you are tuning in. This video is in a series that I'm doing, a 90-day challenge for me to speak my truth and share my story. And so I'm happy you could stop in. I do like to start each video sharing a practice. So, this one, depending on if you have some kind of a consistent practice. So, let's say if you have a meditation practice or maybe some yoga postures that you do. I do this before I do and practice yoga postures. But what I'll do is I'll start with affirmations. And so I actually start with a hug on my left side, which looks like you're right. And so I will share a few affirmations that are standing out for me. So I am whole. I am an extension of source energy. I am capable. And this is where I also will do the you are version. So you are capable. You are an extension of source energy. You are whole. Then I'll switch and I will share you are free statements. So in this hug or hold, I will share and think of ways that I'm free. So you are free. You are free to feel. You are free to love. You are free to receive love. You are free to dance. You are free to cry. And then I will start my practice. So I just wanted to share that with you in case it's something that you might be open to try or modify for your own needs. Yeah, thanks. All right. So I want to talk a little bit. I'm like, oh, I haven't really shared my story other than when I'm talking about these different topics. So I was having a little bit too much fun trying to create a form, like a survey, and it reminded me of work. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking about my work and my work experience. I imagine, unless you've worked with me, I've never really talked about sort of the overarching themes and things, unless you are one friend who I have managed to talk about and think about with these things. Um, but I started out, um, what, which one was my first job? I was a research assistant for a professor in my university. And it was just sort of looking up some things for not very many hours. And then the summer before my junior year, I worked at an after school program, um, but it was the summer, so it would have been summer camp. Um, and so there was a lot of activity. There's a lot of firsthand experiences working directly with people. And then I would go on to work in one of the departments on campus within student affairs. And I do want to note too that when I was in high school, I had to do a senior, I didn't have to do, I had to do a senior year project. And I had to like look into like an industry or like a job and like do research on it and present on it. And at the time I had known about a nonprofit organization through my family. And so I decided to go to that organization. I ended up volunteering in the process and apparently didn't do too well on my project because I lost focus and I didn't really know what I was doing. But I also got some firsthand experience within a specific nonprofit, and I volunteered to and sort of like, I don't know if it was our idea or whoever came up with this idea to host a monthly event for young people in the area. And so my friend, classmate at the time, we were both volunteering there, and it was sort of the beginning of my nonprofit journey. And so jumping back, so after I graduated from university, I found myself working in an after school program. Um, and again, it was providing direct services, it was around youth development. Um, and I guess one of the things that really stood out from that job was how my students would come to me and ask me for advice. And I remember, like, towards the end, there's kind of this silly thing where people would be like, "When can I talk to you next?" And so then we'd like go into a corner of this classroom, even though there were no walls and other people could hear us. But they would share what was going on, and I would listen. I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but I was hearing them and whatever sort of felt called. And so that was something that really stood out. Also, that I liked participating in the activities with them. And so, if we played sports, I would play sports with them. If they were learning to dance, I would like dance with them. And so it was very hands on and very interactive. And then after that, I spent a little bit of time in another state. I worked through a staffing agency at a probably state contracted or um, program providing support to families who were receiving government assistance. So that was just purely administrative. Um, and then when I returned to my hometown. Um, what did I end up doing? I was trying to go back to school, and as I was applying for master's programs, um, my ex's mom passed away, and I was like, I can't really justify going into social work. And so I decided not to apply, and I found a job working for a different nonprofit organization. And so this one was really great because I was able to learn and practice facilitation skills, which has been an important foundational piece of who I am professionally, but also as a person. And so, like, really finding the gift of questions. This is where, and I probably used questions when I was talking to students, but um, being a little bit more intentional around questions in terms of, coming up with a workshop and the topic and sort of how to share information, how to engage the participants in activities or discussions. And so I really enjoyed facilitating. And one of the things that I really found rewarding about that particular job and that role was how the participants learned from me as much as they learned from each other. And so that was one of it was a highlight, and it was something very special about that role and that position that I held. And so I left because of differences. And then I then went on to return to the nonprofit that I had volunteered at as a high school senior, and actually had been we were actually partnered when I was doing the work of facilitating different workshops. And so I'd gone out to that nonprofit and I facilitated groups. And so then I was coming full circle and I was coming back, or I was returning as an employee. And so this was my longest commitment at one organization, even though I had two different roles, technically three. Um, it was really challenging, and I think one of the things that I learned was if you can if you can work in a county contracted program, you can work anywhere. I mean, I've never worked corporate though, but the demands and the impossible outcomes and the impossible measurements in order to continue to be funded was ridiculous. The amount of administrative work that you have to do. Um, yeah, blows my mind. Um, I I guess there I could see where structurally there weren't enough resources, and within this organization I was able to take on informal leadership. And so that was an area of growth for me, right? Where we didn't have the, some of the people I worked with didn't have the capacity to be able to like onboard volunteers or interns, or to sort of train them and work with them. That was something different. And then I think I also, I mean, at this point, I didn't know what it was, but if you've ever heard of human design, it's based on like your date of birth and birth time and location, but it also adds in different things. It's not just astrology, but other systems. Um, I'm a generator. And so, as a generator, you have endless energy. So, you can continue to work and work and work and work and work. But the thing is, if you're doing it out of obligation, or if you're not doing it because you want to, or because it means something to you, or because you enjoy it, you become really resentful. And so I think it was probably a year into it, and I'd already been through many cycles of burnout. But I had met somebody and I was sort of talking about and complaining about like, oh, how much work there was, and how like burnt out I was. And this sort of third person objective perspective was like, why do you work so hard? I was like, I have no idea. I just, as a generator, I would just keep working, right? And so I never, I never saw that as an option. And I would continue to work there for years, probably 8.5 years total, where I would always work really hard, right? And because of that, I started to have more serious health conditions. And so there are these cycles of burnout due to the structure and the system and the lack of resources and the pressure and the maybe inability of my leadership to be able to support us or to protect us, or just a number of things that were going on all at the same time while trying to put out fires with the actual work and the actual participants that were in front of us. And so uh, there was a lot of trauma. And I don't know how much work I've actually done to like heal. that because I can sometimes talk about it and still feel really, but I also know that because I was cycling through burnout, uh, under stress without completing the cycle and like releasing it out of my system and essentially in toxic stress, um, I was not pleasant to be around. And that has been one of the areas where I've tried to apologize to people if I'm still in touch with them. Um, because it was like being in a really long war and everything was a battle and it didn't make for positivity or love, loving kindness or enough pauses or enough meals or enough breaks, um, enough acknowledgement, and so it was just sometimes too like an evolution of maybe the dynamics that I experienced in my family where my needs and my, weren't met. And I sort of just found ways to like put my head down and just keep working. Um, and so it was an arduous time. And even when I was able to move into a different department and program, I think it was a little bit different because the outcomes that we needed to meet in order to continue to be funded were at least within our control. Whereas in the first program, it was like out of our control. Like, can you promise you're going to get somebody a job? Can you guarantee someone's going to keep a job? Can you guarantee? Right. And so those things felt impossible. And so, at least in the second program, it was how many people did you talk to? How many people did you outreach to? How many people did you teach a skill to? Right. So it was a little bit different. Just the sheer number were just so much more. Like, oh, it's a lot. It seemed like a lot. It seemed like a lot. Um, and so there's still a lot of learning that I could do as I shared this part of my journey with you. Um, there are reflections that could happen to sort of prepare myself for um, different work, different contexts, different situations. Um, so eventually I left because my health condition worsened and I no longer wanted to push myself to the point of harm. And so I decided to leave without having something set up. And I was able, not because of the organization's financial support, but just they gave me time to, I worked with my leadership to take certain days off in order to complete my life coaching certification. I also completed my yoga teacher training um, in the previous program, similar where I had modified hours, right? Um, so I was able to complete those two certifications because of my own, personal interest and um, my own my own finances for them. And so by the time I left the organization, my idea was to pursue life coaching and starting my own business. And so This was what I was working on in 2020. And so if you've watched the video where I've spoken about maybe some of the changes and things after my dad's physical transition, this may be a repeat. But essentially, or when I've talked about grief, maybe anticipatory grief. But I also started like a basically per diem, but super, super part time position doing trainings, which I was able to do towards the end of my last organization that I was at. I was able to do trainings on behavioral health topics. And so I was doing that and then getting a couple of client referrals before COVID lockdown in March. And that sort of pulled the rug from under my feet and sort of lost the certainty of the future. And I had this fear of mortality and getting sick and dying as I was watching other people get sick and die um, and lose their resources. And so I sort of bunkered down. And then we lost my dad physically. He transitioned. And so then the attention, and I don't know if, I talked to a couple of other people who lost their fathers that year as well. But there was these like blinders that went on of like, how do we keep our remaining parent alive? There was like, yeah, it was like a subconscious thing that we did. Um, so I thought that was an interesting thing that I had in common with those two people, at least that I had spoken to. So then I found someone on social media who had been doing some somatic experiencing uh, trainings for people during COVID. I followed her on social media and ended up seeing that she was hiring for a virtual assistant. So I have been doing that based on her needs for her private practice. And then I took on a role to support an entrepreneur with her business. It was supposed to be administrative, but also some of um, the work that she did to be able to support um, her efforts. And then we were able to work with the county to get services for my mom and to be able to be paid as a caregiver. And so I was like, oh, it's like I'm reviewing my resume with you, but leaving out some of the specific details. I think it's interesting to talk about some of the learning and the things that stood out from each job and each role. Um, but I think in the recent ones, because they're super part time um, contract work, I think I don't have as much. Like it's different when you're like showing up every day for several hours, like there are things that you come to like and things that are kind of annoying and things you do because you do them and things that are like, oh, it's not so bad. Um, yeah, I have been exploring the job market. I have been looking at and exploring things that I want to do, things that I want to learn, things that I want to offer. And it's been an interesting journey. And usually around the holidays, it gets a little halted. Um, But I think one of the things that I've come to realize is that I can't compartmentalize work from my personal life. It feels like however I show up, whether it's in an office because I'm working or because I am taking my mom to a doctor's appointment or if I'm spending time with a friend, I feel like it's all me. And I want to be able to be as me as I can in any situation. And so, I don't have different, I want a work life integration, not work life balance. I once heard that, and I can't remember where I heard the idea of integration from, but yeah, it's just another extension of me, work, livelihood. And so I still need it to be aligned with who I am and who I want to be. And this is also all of my life I've looked for an ideal job and I've never found an ideal job. And um, yay for romanticizing life. Uh, but maybe I'll never find it, just like I will maybe not find an ideal partner. Um, or maybe I will. Maybe I'm just aligning all the pieces internally so that as within, so without. Um, as within, so beyond. I don't know. Yeah. So work life integration, it's an extension of me. My friends are an extension of me. My work is an extension of me. My livelihood, how I maintain my life and um, trying to sort of explore all the things that are connected with all the things. And it's been interesting. Yeah. So that was a little bit of me professionally. I'm trying to think if there's any other pieces. I was just gonna say, like, I think that's why the life coaching certification or the life coaching program was so meaningful, was it sort of took a lot of the pieces and the things that I enjoyed and excelled at, and it consolidated it and it gave me more language and it gave me more um like tangible, concrete tools and like ways to explain it. And I don't know if I've already said this, but like the textbook sounded like me. And I was like, oh, I've never had myself reflected in a textbook before. So that was also really meaningful. Um, but then there's just something about coaching. There's something about if it feels enough, like just, and, being able to figure out how to integrate the material with the spiritual. And I think about what my friend says about how everything is spiritual. And I'm like, oh, those, I can't separate those either. But sometimes I'm still um, working out of some mental habits of like, well, when you gotta be a little, you gotta be a little more grounded in the real world. And so I think I'm still trying to find a way to make it fit, match. And I'm probably unlearning that practice or the criticism that I received for being too idealistic and too romantic. Um, but yeah, thanks. Thanks for listening to me share about work. Um, mhm. Thanks for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And if this is where our journey ends, I appreciate you for coming through and witnessing me and my journey. And if you will be continuing, I look forward to connecting with you. I also hope that you feel and believe that you are worthy of unconditional love and that you are capable of unconditional love. I look forward to connecting with you next time. And until then, please take good care. Okay, bye bye.